Welcome to the Lion's Share podcast, where we break down today's most impactful research and bring fresh insights from the academic frontier straight to you.
I want you to try something for me. Unless you're driving in which case, please, eyes on the road. But if you're safe, maybe walking along with us, just close your eyes for a second.
I'm already a little nervous about where this is going.
Trust me on this. I want you to picture the word innovation. Just let an image pop into your head. What do you see?
Oh, I know exactly what it is.
It's a light bulb, isn't it?
It is almost always a light bulb.
Right. That classic cartoon moment. The filament glows, usually over some genius's head in a lab coat. He shouts, "Eureka!" And boom, the world changes. It feels like magic.
It feels like magic. And honestly, if we do one thing on our walk today, it should be to take that light bulb and just smash it.
Smash the light bulb. That feels a little aggressive for a Sunday stroll.
It's necessary aggression.
Right.
Look, we're diving into a whole stack of materials today that basically argue the light bulb is the most dangerous metaphor in business. We've got Goffin and Mitchell's 2025 text, Understanding Innovation, a really dense case study from Genpact, and the Innovation Masters lecture series.
And they all agree.
The consensus is the eureka moment is a lie.
A lie. That's a pretty strong word.
Or, the very expensive myth. The Innovation Masters lecture is brutal on this point. It says, while we love the story of the lone genius, the reality is that new product failure rates are, hovering around 30%?
So 1 in 3 big ideas just crashes and burns.
Exactly. And you'd think with all the data we have now, we'd be better at this.
You would think.
But here's the kicker. CEOs consistently report much higher confidence in their company's innovation than the people actually doing the work.
So the boss thinks everything's great, waiting for a lightning strike, while the team is kind of drowning in the dark.
Precisely. Innovation isn't an accident. It's not magic. It is a discipline, a messy, cross-functional, hard-nosed discipline. And that's our mission for this deep dive. We're moving from innovation as creativity to innovation as management.
Which is huge for anyone listening who's in business modeling or corporate venturing. I mean, if you think you can just brainstorm your way to market dominance, you are going to lose.
You absolutely will.
So as we're walking through the city today, and I think dodging this construction traffic is the perfect backdrop, let's unpack it. Real innovation isn't a straight line. It's a messy environment.
It is. And to navigate it, we first have to, define the beast. Because most people get the definition wrong from the start.
Right. I always thought innovation just meant new product, like here's the new iPhone.
And that is what the text calls the Apple bias.
Yeah.
We look at consumer gadgets and think that's the whole story. But Goffin and Mitchell bring in the OECD definition, which is much, much broader.
So it's not just R&D in a lab with test tubes.
Far from it. It includes scientific, technical, commercial, even financial activities. In fact, the text breaks it down into 7 different dimensions. And most companies are only pulling one of those levers.
7. Okay, I'm going to rattle these off because the scope here is just wild. You've got product innovation, obviously, the shiny gadget, but then design innovation, process innovation, how you make the thing, service innovation, business process innovation.
And don't forget the really big ones.
Right. Business model innovation, how you make money. And finally, business purpose innovation.
Okay, I want to stop walking for a second. Just focus on one of those. Business model innovation. BMI.
Why that one?
Because it's the important one. The text argues that while companies spend all their energy making a slightly better product innovation is actually the easiest thing for a competitor to copy.
Really? I would thought engineering the product is the hard part.
Well, think about it. If you release a phone with a better camera today, what happens tomorrow?
Samsung or Google has one in 6 months.
Exactly. I can buy the sensor. I can reverse engineer the tech. Features are cheap. But if you change your business model, how you create and capture value, that is incredibly hard to replicate.
Can you give me an example? Because a business model can feel a little fuzzy.
Think about the shift from selling software on a CD to a subscription model, like SaaS. That's not a product change. The software does the same thing. But the model changed everything. Your cash flow, your customer relationship, that's where sustained advantage lives. And yet we ignore it.
Because it's scary.
It's terrifying. Which brings us to the math. The source material introduces this thing called the Innovation Ambition Matrix.
Sounds like a sci-fi movie.
It's basically a rule of thumb for your portfolio. 7-8-20-10.
Right, I've heard of this. It's the Google rule, isn't it?
It's sort of the golden ratio of innovation. 70% of your resources go to incremental innovation.
The safe stuff, continuous improvement.
Yep, tweaking the widget. 20% goes to breakthrough innovation, new tech, an unmet need. And only 10%, that goes to radical market-creating innovation.
Okay, so here's my question. Playing devil's advocate a bit. If we just said that business model innovation, the radical stuff, drives better advantage, why do most firms still spend 70% of their energy on tiny product tweaks? Why are we stuck in incremental?
Because it pays the bills next quarter. Incremental innovation targets existing customers, existing markets. It is low risk. Radical BMI is terrifying. It might cannibalize your current revenue.
You mean if I invent subscriptions, I stop selling CDs and my sales dip for a year?
Exactly. It's the classic innovator's dilemma. You have to be willing to kill your own cash cow. The danger, though, is that if you're only doing the 70%, you might just be efficiently managing your way to obsolescence.
Like polishing the brass on the Titanic.
A beautiful shine right before you hit the iceberg.
Cheerful. But it explains why we need a rigorous process. If the stakes are survival, you can't just wing it.
Correct. You need a map. Which brings us to the how.
Right, so the process. The Innovation Master Source had this great bit about the funnel. Lots of ideas in the top, one perfect product drops out the bottom.
A classic linear model.
And the lecturer just calls it a lie.
A gross oversimplification. I mean, think about your own work. Does anything ever move in a straight line?
Never. It's 2 steps forward, 1 step back, 3 steps sideways.
Exactly. Real innovation has feedback loops. Dead ends. You get to development and realize the whole idea is flawed, so you have to go back. It's recursive.
So if the funnel is out, what do we use? Goffin and Mitchell proposed something called the Innovation Pentathlon.
This is the core framework of the text. Imagine an athletic pentathlon. You have to be good at 5 different events to win, right? Being a world-class runner doesn't help if you can't swim.
You just drown faster.
In innovation, the 5 events are 1, ideas creativity, 2, selection, 3, implementation, 4, strategy, and 5, people and culture.
I want to drill into selection for a second because everyone loves ideas. Brainstorming's fun, but selection, that sounds painful.
It is the most painful part. Selection is the ability to say no. It's the kill switch. The text argues that so many companies fail, not because they lack ideas, but because their selection filters are terrible.
They let bad projects just zombie walk for too long.
Wasting millions.
Yeah.
Or they kill the good ideas because they look too risky.
Yeah.
So excellence in ideas is useless if you're bad at selection. And even if you select the right idea, if you fail at implementation, you've just got a nice PowerPoint.
And that implementation phase is where that Genpact case study really shines, because this is not a story about a cool gadget.
No. It's my favorite part of the reading because it's about the unsexy, messy, real work.
Let's get into it. The scenario is a retail finance client, a massive credit card company, and they are just bleeding money on collections.
It's a classic back office nightmare. People aren't paying their bills.
No, the light bulb approach, the product innovation approach would be, let's invent a cooler credit card.
Right. Let's make it out of metals so people feel richer and pay us back.
Exactly. But Genpact didn't do that. They went for Dimension 3, process innovation.
So what did they actually do?
They went full math nerd on it.
Yeah.
They used advanced analytics and something called Monte Carlo simulations.
Okay, pause. We need to break that down. For anyone who hasn't touched a stats textbook in a decade, what's a Monte Carlo simulation?
Basically, instead of guessing what might happen, you use a computer to run a scenario thousands, even millions of times with random variables. It gives you a probability map. It tells you if you do X, there's a 90% chance of Y.
So they took the guesswork out of it? They moved from intuition to probability.
Completely. They analyzed over 300 million collections records.
300 million. That's a data lake, not a pond.
And they found that by optimizing a few operational levers, just changing the math of how and when they contacted people, they could change the outcome.
And the result?
They reduced gross loss by $175 million annually.
Wow. 175 million just by fixing the process.
It's staggering. And if we
Yeah.
connect this back to the pentathlon, look at how they did it. The source says they used a solution exchange.
This is key. It wasn't just a suggestion box. It was a platform they built to tap into an ecosystem of external partners, academics, researchers, experts.
So they admitted they didn't have all the answers in the building.
Which is the hardest part for a corporation.
Yeah.
That covers the people culture and implementation parts of the pentathlon. They built a mechanism to pull in expertise.
Precisely. And it raises a really good question for anyone listening. How does a firm shift its mindset from product thinking, making a better credit card, to process thinking, optimizing the math?
It's the ego thing, isn't it? It's harder to brag at a cocktail party about your Monte Carlo simulation than it is about your shiny new gadget.
There's definitely a bias to the tangible, the Apple bias again. But there's also a functional barrier. The text talks about who's actually allowed to innovate.
Yeah, it lists R&D, marketing, but it also lists sales and finance. And it notes that sales teams are often excluded from innovation meetings.
Which is so ironic. Who talks to the customer every single day?
Sales. But management is afraid if sales gets involved in the future stuff, they'll stop selling the current stuff. So you have R&D building in a vacuum, and then sales looks at it and says, nobody wants this.
And then you've got finance, the Department of No.
The enemy of creativity. The grim reapers of the budget.
Right. But the text says they are essential. Without finance to evaluate the investment and enable execution, you just have a hobby, not a business.
Innovation is a cross-functional sport. That's the headline. Silos kill ventures. If you keep finance in the dark until the end, they will kill your project, and not because they're evil, because they don't understand the model.
So involve the blockers is actually good advice.
It's essential advice. If you're building a new venture in a corporation, your first hire shouldn't be a designer. It should be a friend in the finance department.
Okay, I want to pivot a bit. We've been praising the pentathlon in the process, but can you over-process innovation? Is there a downside to all this structure?
That is a fair challenge. Because frankly, the Innovation Masters video makes a pointed observation. Academic journals tend to talk to themselves.
What do you mean by that?
He says top business journals are cited by actual managers. Almost never. So we have these beautiful frameworks like the pentathlon and textbooks, but are they used in the wild?
So managers are just operating on heuristics like the light bulb myth because the research isn't reaching them.
Exactly. And there's a critique of the pentathlon in the text itself. It admits the framework diagnosis capability, but it does not predict performance.
Wait, explain that distinction. That sounds like a lawyer's loophole.
It means you can have a perfect process, great ideas, strict selection, rigorous implementation, and the product can still flop.
How? If you do everything right.
The market might shift. A competitor might undercut you. A global pandemic might hit. You can do everything right by the model and still fail.
That's terrifying. You can control the inputs, but not the output.
And that leads to a deeper question. Does relying on these structured frameworks actually stifle radical innovation? If we enforce a 7-20-10 split, are we just institutionalizing mediocrity?
You're telling teams, don't try too hard to change the world, just give me my 70% incremental tweaks because that fits the spreadsheet.
That's the tension. Structure versus chaos. You need structure to scale, but chaos creates the spark. If you overmanage the process, you might kill the very thing you're trying to grow.
It seems like B2B companies like Genpact almost have an advantage here. They're not trying to be cool, they're just trying to be effective.
I think you're right. The Genpact example proves B2B process innovation, totally invisible to the consumer, can create massive value. But because it's not a shiny gadget, it rarely gets the innovation label. We have to broaden our definition.
It's not just what you can hold, it's about value.
Value creation and value capture. That's the core.
So let's try to synthesize this. We've walked a long way from that light bulb. We started by smashing the myth of the lone genius.
And we replaced it with the reality of the pentathlon. We saw that innovation isn't one thing, it's 7 dimensions. It's product, but it's also process and business model.
And we learned about balance, the 7-0-20-10 mix. You can't just bet the farm on moonshots, but you can't just polish the same old thing forever.
And critically, the Genpact case showed us that execution, the implementation, and people parts is where the money is made. They didn't just have an idea, they built a platform, they ran the simulations.
So for the listener walking along with us, let's land this plane. What do they actually do with this tomorrow? What's the Monday morning action item?
Okay, I've got 3.
Hit me.
First, audit your dimensions. Look at your projects. Are you 100% focused on product? If so, you're leaving money on the table. Look at process, like Genpact, or look at your business model.
I love that. Don't be a one-trick pony.
Second, kill the light bulb. Stop waiting for a magical idea. Focus on your selection and implementation machinery.
Yeah.
How do you filter ideas? How do you kill bad ones quickly? That is more important than the spark.
And the third.
Involve the blockers. Bring finance and sales into the room on day 1. They aren't enemies. They're essential roles in the pentathlon. You need their reality check, and you need their buy-in.
Solid advice. Never hide the project from the CFO.
Never hide the project from the CFO.
Before we sign off, I want to leave our listener with one last thing to chew on. We mentioned business purpose innovation as that 7th dimension. linking innovation to societal impact.
This is where I think the future lies. And it's a bit of a cliffhanger. We have mastered how to innovate for profit. We know how to do the Genpact thing and save $175 million. But as purpose becomes a market demand sustainability, social equity, I have to wonder.
Wonder what?
Are current frameworks, like the pentathlon, even capable of measuring that? The pentathlon is designed for commercial competitiveness. But if the goal shifts to societal impact, do we need a completely new model for the next decade?
Is efficiency the wrong metric for the future?
Exactly. We've built a high-speed engine, but we need to make sure the steering wheel is pointed where the world actually needs to go.
That is a heavy thought to end on. We've optimized the machine, but is it pointed in the right direction?
Something to think about on the walk home.
Well, on that note, we're going to keep walking and maybe rethink our own business models. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the messy, disciplined world of innovation management.
My pleasure. Keep questioning the light bulbs.
See you next time.
Thanks for tuning into the Lion's Share podcast. If you enjoyed today's discussion, share it with a friend and join us next time for more ideas worth talking about. We'll see you next time.